2020 January 1st. Daily Bread. Passage. Daniel chapter 1 verse 1 to 21. Key verse. Verse 17. Title: God's blessing on faithful exiles. Bible passage. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim king of Judah into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. These he carried off to the temple of his God in Babylonia and put in the treasure house of his God. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Ananiah, Mishael and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names: to Daniel, the name Belshazzar; to Ananiah, Shadrach; to Mishael, Meshach; and to Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, "I am afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you." Daniel then said to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Ananiah, Mishael and Azariah, "Please test your servants for 10 days, give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see." So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them into his service, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Ananiah, Mishael and Azariah, so they entered the king's service. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the 1st year of King Cyrus. Daily Bread message. Introduction to Daniel. In 605 B, under King Jehoiakim's reign in Judah, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon besieged Jerusalem. The young man Daniel and his 3 friends were among those taken into exile to Babylon. Chapters 1 to 6 tell the story of Daniel and his 3 friends who were protected by God and who testified to the sovereign rule of God. God can protect individuals, if he so chooses. God Most High is also sovereign over kingdoms and nations, and he gives them to anyone he wishes. By chapter 6, Daniel must have been an old man, at least in his 80s, 539 B. 66 years after he came as an exile. Chapters 7 to 12 are a record of visions that Daniel had during the reigns of 3 kings, Belshazzar, Darius and Cyrus. These visions were about worldly kingdoms and God's eternal kingdom. In the midst of intrigue and wickedness, God's people are encouraged to be faithful. It is because the Ancient of Days will pronounce judgment in favor of the holy people of the Most High God, and they will possess his kingdom. The Book of Daniel encourages us to be faithful to God in a wicked, godless, unbelieving world which is full of idols and attitudes that defy God. Daniel and his 3 friends were ready to die for their faith in and love for God. It pleased God to rescue them from a fiery furnace and from lions. Their faith is a faithful witness to Almighty God, so that even pagan kings stand amazed at the greatness of God. God is living and eternal, and his kingdom will never be destroyed. 1. Enlisted exiles. Daniel and his 3 friends were among the Jewish nobility taken to Babylon. They were chosen for their physical and mental qualities to be trained in a 3-year program to enter the king's service. They were given Babylonian names and had to study the Babylonian language and literature. 2. Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. He asked that he and his friends have a different diet. The chief official didn't agree. But the guard agreed to test them for 10 days with just water and vegetables. God blessed them. 3. God's blessing. God blessed Daniel and his 3 friends not only physically but mentally as well. The king found them 10 times wiser than all the king's advisors. Prayer. Prayer, Lord, may my life and decisions honor you. One word. 10 times better with God's blessing.